be very mindful to not project or infer your fears onto the child.
That's the worst thing you can do in this circumstance.
Yeah.
Your job is to stand at a distance, arm's length away, and be there when your child needs you, even if they're an adult at this point. Mm-hmm. They will ask for advice when they need advice. They will ask you to intervene in some manner if they need that, but you don't get to be the one to introduce that. Hey everybody, welcome back to Thrive After Dark. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to take a minute and thank you for all the engagement and questions that we had last week. Actually, that episode was our most viewed episode yet.
I mean, we started with threesomes, so I get it.
Right. Yes.
Now, this episode's going to be a great one. Back by popular demand, we're going back into the trenches of Reddit with some really amazing stories that we're going to comment on and hopefully help lend some problem-solving opportunities to it. We are also still in search for our first guest for Thrive After Dark. We're looking for anybody that specializes in all of the categories we've hit here: parenting, sex, marriage, relationship, couples, dating, divorce, anything you can think that is real to you that we deal with on a daily basis that we could bring an expert into. Now, if you know this person who has a personality as well, we would like to hear from you. And as always, in the description, the jot form is anonymous. Hit it, fill it out, send it over, and we will reach out to that person on behalf of Thrive After Dark. So without further ado, let's hit it.
All right.
We're going to read the first one. My husband is at his breaking point. Our 9-month-old seems to prefer me over my husband, which I understand is normal at this age. 9 months old. Okay. However, he still cries every time my husband tries to hold him, which is really upsetting for my husband. He's tried everything, playing with him, feeding him, spending time during meals, but our son often rejects his efforts, seemingly angry that it's not me. My husband is really struggling with this. He's on edge and doesn't know what else to do. He's so excited to be a dad, and this is just heartbreaking. And sorry, I lost my spot here. But it's been really tough for him. Has anyone else experienced this with their child? Did the child eventually change their preference? And any advice on how to improve their relationship?
I mean, this is a good question. And it does happen.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going into the birth of a child and you want to be able to prevent something like this, and it's not going to prevent it all the time, you have to make sure that both parents have the opportunity to bond with the child in the very early stages, literally in the early hours of the birth. So you got skin-to-skin contact that typically happens with mom. It's important that dad does the same thing as well. And just make sure that as the child comes through their first couple months, that it is not only mom doing all the consoling or all the nurturing.
Yes.
Being there, rocking them to sleep, feeding them, whatever it may be, should be shared by both parents, and that's going to help prevent something like this.
Yeah. Oftentimes in newer parents, remember Justin and I were newer parents. I've been parenting half my life. There is this, well, I'm going to do these bits and you do these bits.
Yep.
And so what Justin's talking about is the integration of all of it so that it's a shared experience. It's shared in, and obviously there's hardly anything to discipline a 9-month-old on, but you share the disciplinary actions, you share the loving, the bonding, the caring for, the protection pieces, the consoling. So even today in our parenthood, we've got 3 children from 20 all the way down to 7, and we share the duties in bedtime routine, in morning routine, in comforting. So one of our kids gets hurt and is crying. Naturally, they want to come to mom. I think that's very natural. It's primal. But we do share those duties. So you'll often come over and I'll usually make an excuse to get up and go get the Band-Aid or get up and go do something so you can actually hold one of the kids and console them. And I think that is a very important piece. New parents tend to cling to certain aspects that are natural for them. So maybe you can remember the times in which like you only changed the diapers, and I'm not talking to you, but people listening. The mom's like, no, I change the diapers. I do bath time. I do feeding. You can help prepare all that stuff, but I want to be the one to do it. And it's almost this mother bear effect. And then so it's really easy for the dad to take the back seat.
Well, here's some examples of how we integrated that with our own children. You know, you were nursing mom with all of our children, and there may be circumstances. I mean, phenomenal.
Thank
Superhero.
you.
Seriously.
I fed them all, kept them alive.
I know.
Thank you.
Your miracle body kept them
is-
alive.
Yes.
It's incredible.
It's a temple.
But there would be circumstances where it'd be time to nurse. And maybe instead of nursing, I would go ahead and do a bottle of breast milk while you pumped. And that
Not
would
for
allow
yourself, for the baby.
one for them, one for me.
You
maybe.
did try it.
I mean, it's supposed to grow muscle, right?
It is. And hair.
Well, didn't work as well with the hair, but so, you know, we would interchange like that. So I'm actually, you know, feeding our child while you pump, because oftentimes it's, you know, them crying near you. And, you know, there's a biological connection that happens that when the baby's hungry, all of a sudden your body wants to lactate. And so instead you're pumping, I'm feeding, or even in the middle of the night, you know, we'd wake up because we're up often, and I would immediately get up. I'd be the one to get our child most of the time, bring them to you. You'd go ahead and nurse them. As soon as they were done nursing, I'd take them back, burp them, change them, and rock them until they fall back asleep.
Yes.
You know, so it's each of those consoling, comforting events we would share in.
Yeah. And so maybe specific advice for this particular person would be
It's too late. Start over. Get another child.
no, but really look at your routines and look at the areas in which the mom does particular things all the time on repeat, and try and interrupt that pattern as best as you can without disrupting the unit. And then, of course, there are things you can't avoid. So maybe dad works off hours. Maybe there's, you know, not the opportunity to do that. And so mom leaving the baby with dad and forcing the bonding through absolute survival piece, right? Where the baby has to acclimate and adapt, and the baby will.
Yeah, they might have to even try a shared approach. You know, those moments where the child wants to run away from dad and go to mom, you know, maybe they're tired and they just want to be rocked to sleep, or maybe they're hungry and they want to be fed. You know, having the dad there along with mom and in some sort of manner, literally physically connected. Like if she's still nursing at 9 months, you know, have the dad there sitting next to them and rubbing the baby's head.
Oh, that's
just
the
like
head.
This.
Okay. It's not the teat.
It's not a boob.
Okay.
let me serve this up.
Bless.
No, that's clearly a baby's head.
I didn't know what you were doing.
You think this is how I would grab?
I'm not sure. I didn't know what you were trying to demonstrate.
No.
Okay. Well, that's our suggestion. That is a tough one, and I can imagine how heartbreaking that feels to dad and mom.
And that will evolve regardless.
Yes, it will. Of course it will. Yep.
Next example is, how do you cope with the fact that children aren't invincible? I'm finding it an emotionally difficult thing to make peace with. We're a very active family, and we're also such careful parents, and my son broke his wrist on the monkey bars this weekend. He's 5. My daughter broke her leg when she was 2. I'm finding it hard to make peace with all the possible risks when children and all the things that can go wrong, since the risk now feels very real since this weekend's injury. Any advice? What helps you?
I mean, shit happens.
I know.
That's the advice.
Kids
let
are
them get
resilient.
hurt.
Like-
yeah. And I mean, obviously, when we say that, I'm not saying like let them run out into the freeway, but within the confines, if they're on the playground, they get hurt. That happens. It's okay.
Yep.
It's part of that resiliency factor that they learn. And
Learning can only happen through exposure. And all our job as parents are to do the best we can to make that exposure in as controlled a manner as possible. But, you know, we read a book before, and I don't know if we referenced it on an earlier episode, but it's Parenting with Love and Logic.
Yep.
One of the sayings that always stood out in that is, the cost of a lesson learned grows with time.
exactly.
And so the sooner you can let your child learn a lesson, like regardless of what happened, where he broke his wrist and the sister broke her ankle or her leg, those are circumstances that are not likely to repeat, and they're learning from them.
They will learn every
and even
time.
if they do repeat, they're going to be okay. They're going to be resilient. The younger a child is, the easier it is for them to rebound physically from any injury, partly because of that. It's our time in life to learn those things.
Yeah. And I would say my biggest piece of advice to this mom is like, be very mindful to not project or infer your fears onto the child. Do not allow that for you to then become a helicopter parent where your child is so buffered and so stifled from growth and the ability to fend for themselves, to have any sort of independence, that they grow to be very lackluster adults that don't know how to cope. They don't know how to problem solve.
No self-confidence.
They don't even know how to use thought process to think bigger or think forward. It's critical that you do not allow these instances to overshadow the desire for the child to grow and continue their independence and exploration within the confines of ultimate safety, right? And I'm not talking safety from not hurting themselves, scraping themselves. I'm talking like, of course, we're going to always be mindful that they're with us in the parking lot, that they're not running into the road, and that they're not biking on the freeway at 9 years old or whatever. So I just think let it be, let it ride.
All of us parents that are in our 40s and into 50s at this point all talk about, and there's tons of reels out there of growing up in the 70s and 80s, and I'm an 80s baby, and I mean we used to ride in the back of pickup trucks. That's real. We literally used to not go inside, not be allowed to go inside. We had to be outside all day long, and so we would drink from garden hoses. We would swim in the lake. We would run all over the neighborhood, and it wasn't a problem. We'd scrape ourselves up, and some neighbor would see us and help us out, or we'd make it to the closest friend's house and they'd bandage us up and we're right back out there.
Right.
It's just the way it worked growing up, and we're all okay. We're all actually doing pretty well. And removing those things from our kids is actually more detrimental than it would be the broken ankle or the broken leg.
Yeah. And we can tell you from being in a business of serving a lot of young adults, like it is absolutely paramount that you allow them to learn the hard way. Allow them to learn the hard way. It doesn't mean they won't have privilege or other things that you've worked hard to give them the opportunity to, but allow them to earn it.
Yes.
Period. Earn the hurt, earn the boo-boo, earn the resiliency. Move on. Okay, next one. My daughter broke up with her boyfriend of 4 years, and it feels like I'm going through the breakup as well. I'm upset and angry. Despite initially resisting getting to know him because I didn't think their relationship would last, I eventually welcomed him into our family, and they talked about moving in together and getting married. He became like a son to me. He would seek advice from my husband, and we even included him in our holiday celebrations. When he returned from a college program, I made him a welcome home dinner. Okay. However, it turns out he cheated on my daughter. He begged her not to break up with him, and when she agreed to stay, he broke up with her instead. I'm deeply disappointed and angry at him for lacking character. As much as I want to intervene and fix things, I know she's an adult and I need to respect her wishes. She doesn't want us to be angry, but I don't know where else to direct my anger. Oh gosh, you want my honest and very blunt opinion, let that shit go. This is your daughter's. This is not yours. Get out of her way. Great advice from her, young one. Mom, stop being angry about it. Direct your anger. There's multiple avenues, and I don't mean to be so brash, but again, this isn't about you, and you're making it about you. Don't steal this moment from your daughter. This is her life. This is her heart that got broken. Yes, it's affecting you. You're feeling the pain too, not only for her, but for yourself. And mainly understanding like she's the main character here. Support her.
I think as parents, we naturally have this thought that we want to jump in and save our kids from pain wherever we can, as the example of the last question was. And that's the worst thing you can do in this circumstance. Yeah. Your job is to stand at a distance, arm's length away, and be there when your child needs you, even if they're an adult at this point. They will ask for advice when they need advice. They will ask you to intervene in some manner if they need that. but you don't get to be the one to introduce that. The moment you do, you actually step in between them and the person that the challenge is with. And more importantly, you rob them of the ability to learn from a social change, a social event.
Huge. And that's the most, in my opinion, the most important piece is the social awareness that she's learning, and then moving into self-awareness around this is critical to her development, her ability to learn what she's capable of, what she went through at a young age. And this is all a part of it. Heartache is a part of it. That's the risk in love, and gosh, is it worthy of it? So direct your anger towards a journal, direct it in terms of communication and talking through it with maybe your spouse, your friends. Go to the gym, go on walks, but definitely do not take the pen from your daughter and rewrite her story for her. Let her continue to author that and go through it and be a proper and beautiful sounding board.
Yeah, your voice and opinion does not have a place in the circumstance until it's asked for, and even then it's only shared with the person that's asking. Like, you don't get to jump in there and then go around your daughter the moment she opens up that door of communication and start expressing your frustration and anger.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like what she wants to do.
It's almost like, like railroad tracks, and they have like a set direction that they're going on. And then the mom's like, I just want to pull the lever and have the railroad direct their train to the right. Like, just don't do that. This is your daughter's life. This is her life journey. Mm-hmm. Support her, guide her. We can even steer, dependent on age, to encourage in certain directions. But heartache is really natural. Young couples going through learning boundaries and what's right and what's not right. Really natural, really important. Doesn't make what he did right, but valid lesson for him too. That's the reason why we usually have more than one relationship in life, is right. to be able to learn these things. So I think while difficult to go through at any age, mm-hmm. Super important stuff to go through.
Right. All right. Last one. So the title of this one gets me. My child won't stop catfishing adults.
Oh, okay.
My partner and I keep catching our 14-year-old child catfishing people. She isn't our biological child. She's our niece that we took guardianship of about 6 months ago. Oh, previously, she lived in a house with no order or rules, and her biological mom did not intervene. So she came to us, having spent the last few years catfishing people, typically older men, with her pretending to be 18 or 19. The first time we found out what was happening, we had a long conversation about trafficking and the dangers of engaging in illicit conversations with older men, blocked her contact with these individuals, and started monitoring her communications using Bark. The catfishing continued, so we eventually took away her phone and social media accounts and only let her have a phone and text access via a Bark phone and limited Roblox. Since then, she's been better, so we gave her the original phone back and let her have social media again, where we discovered she's returned to catfishing and having adult conversations where she's sharing fake pics and soliciting photos from others. What would you do in this situation? I thought about making her watch MTV's Catfish so she can see the bigger picture, but I'm also worried that she'll get some ideas on how to become an even more prolific catfisher.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Wow, there's a lot to take in here.
We're becoming Amish tomorrow. Ryan, we're out. We're grabbing our kids. We're going off grid.
Yeah, there's a lot. This is a lot to take in. I can imagine the sense of urgency and fear that the parents are feeling.
First of all, let's address a really, really significant challenge that parents nowadays in our modern era face. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a 14-year-old child here.
I know.
And
the access.
That should be something that in and of itself should not be something that there's any question on whether or not we as adults control. Mm-hmm. And yet even a 14-year-old child, even a 10-year-old child, mm-hmm. nowadays, no matter how much control you implement, mm-hmm. you still don't have 100% of it.
Right.
There's always a friend with a phone. There's a computer
older
at
sibling.
a library. There's a million different mm-hmm. ways. I mean, Jesus, we ended up, our daughter was on an art app mm-hmm. in which she could create photos and everything. And we found out, thank God we were looking at it.
Yeah,
we found out
social aspect
people were reaching out on a social side mm-hmm. to that app.
Mm-hmm.
and trying to have conversation.
Yeah. Like very clear catfishing happening there. And that was extremely alarming. Wow, gosh, I wish we had really good answers here. The answer we currently have that we are currently going through with all of this is extreme and firm boundaries within the family that are based around a very loving, caring, open communication about it. So oftentimes I'm sure this parent is feeling this way. I know we have felt this way. You have this deep sense of fear and urgency to shut it all down, to we're going off grid, we're done. Your fight or flight definitely kicks in because it presses the button of not being able to protect. So the best you can truly do is what they're already doing. I don't see any other solution, because the more you shut down access points, the more you're going to drive her to find them somewhere else.
Yeah. I don't think that's the angle to attack this from, though. Let's talk about why this even exists. The backstory makes it pretty clear on why this is happening. She comes from a house where she is amongst a group of people in which she has no attention. And so negative attention is better than better than no attention. And so I think she found an outlet in which she can connect with people and get attention that makes her feel validated and cared for or wanted. And that is fulfilling a missing need in her life. And I think helping go deeper in that angle and finding out what actually needs to happen in order to have her not feel that way. Because quite frankly, if she had self-confidence and if she felt self-assured, she wouldn't be seeking this from other people. This isn't
maybe not. I would argue, yes, probably based on the history, therapy would be really important here regardless. And I think this is whether it's catfishing or social media driving attention seeking behaviors and obsessive around content delivery because you need that dopamine hit. I think that our youth, it's mind warping for our youth. And this can be anywhere from young teens to adults. I mean, it's pretty intense, and it's an addiction. And I think it's something that our world needs to pay a lot more attention to. It's alarming. So outside of therapy, I would just say coming from an extreme educational angle of constantly, and maybe showing her MTV's Catfish. I haven't watched the program. I've heard about it. You're right. I am positive if it's anything that we can remember about from documentary style of MTV, that it's going to showcase ways in which people are catfishing and then showcasing the surprise of catching them and all of that. She could pick up ideas, but I think using the education around what this does for her in a negative way, what this does to other people in their lives in a negative way, and most importantly, the danger she's actually in. Because of her age, the danger she's actually in now into adulthood is pretty extreme. You're toying with people's emotions that can revert to anger very quickly. And when people are angry, they do lots of things that they wouldn't when they're in control. So, I would really stay focused on that with her and get into some therapy and make it a point of subject within that conversation too, of hey, social media, social access, tricking, lying, manipulating people can lead to some really horrific things. And we don't want that for you. I'm sure there are all sorts of professional ways to talk through that and showcase end results that child would never want to be a part of.
Right.
And that's where we're at. That's what we would do if it got this deep. And we're certainly in the full-on education ring as much as we can be with a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, we're discovering that it's a lot of what you just said. It's half the desire for attention because of a lack of self-confidence that a lot of our youth has. And then it's half or more literally just the addiction, the dopamine hit.
It feels good to have attention, and the platforms are designed to do that. I mean, that's the entire design. So,
well, in technology, it wasn't, even if it wasn't designed that way, that's the way it works.
yeah,
You know, you look at if we remove roadblocks from our daughter's life, and sometimes we do.
yes,
The next thing that she seeks is still now Duolingo, where she's learning Spanish, which is a good thing, but it's now the dopamine hit of raising levels, and she can get to the point where she's about to go to bed, and all of a sudden that pops into her head, and she's like, I got to do it because I'm going to lose my status or whatever.
Which, honestly, like, it's no different than back in the day for us. We would need to complete our homework because we want to do well in school. We need to talk to our friend, Erin, before going to bed because she had some gossip story, and I want it before I go to school tomorrow so that I'm in the know and I can have the hierarchy of social status. It's no different than any of those things. The difference is the addiction component to what social media does for thought process, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. And I think that's the main concern I have with youth today, even into 20s, and then what happens with adults our age and beyond. Like, it just becomes an outlet that is a pseudo reality to the world you actually live in. And I think it's dangerous. So I would definitely, just based on history here, go to therapy, and seek that until you've found the right people that are going to support the need of this young one learning more intrinsic approval and self-confidence and self-awareness and understanding the real world that she lives in.
Yep.
Well, I think what we could move into is just raising kids in today's world. We do have a unique perspective because we have a 20-year-old, and then we also have our 10-year-old and our 7-year-old. So there's a big gap there, 2 different time frames. Things were wildly different, even from pregnancy point of view.
Right.
Like, the technology changed everything when I was pregnant the second time, and then even the third time.
Yeah.
Like, the
It was
products
like 4
changed.
years later. Right.
Yeah, it was wild. And then even the process of what was required by modern medicine by the time I was pregnant with our youngest one. So things rapidly shift. And I would say what we've learned from parenting our oldest during that time frame versus now is you have to force the disconnect from the modern world a little bit. So what when I say that, I mean technology, phones, computers, screens in general. You have to be extremely mindful because, one, it becomes a crutch for parents, hardworking parents, tired parents, lazy parents, whatever state of mind the parent is in. It is the easiest crutch to be like, oh, just grab your iPad.
Because there's instantly silence, right?
Instant. And we talk about it constantly with our kids to keep it extremely relevant and conscious is, hey, you were just behaving this way. And the second you put your screen away, you're now behaving this way. What happened? How are you feeling? What changed? And bringing that, we do it with our 7-year-old constantly.
Yeah, we say, what you're teaching mom and dad is that you can't handle that. Is that the lesson you want us to learn? And they literally will say, like, well, no. And so they become conscious of the fact that they're acting in a certain way the moment the screens go away that isn't positive, that we don't want in our household. Yeah. And that has helped a lot.
Yeah. It's we try and we work hard at hitting self-awareness with them so that they can then consciously at some point say, wow, my behavior has shifted when I'm on my screen, when I'm doing the thing, whether it's not social media for kids right now, eventually it will be. But when they're doing Roblox or they're doing their videos that they're making themselves, through apps, they behave a certain way, and when they're off of it, they're behaving in a way that is either negative, strung out, they're ornery, they're at each other's throats, right? They're just like frazzled. There's a lot of friction. And so we want to teach them the self-awareness pieces of being able to differentiate between the two so that they can say like, oh, so being on a screen for that long causes me to act this way. And that's not good because I didn't act that way when I was on the screen or before the screen. And so we work really hard at that.
Well, and here's something that is true with kids that they will never verbalize, nor do they even have an awareness around, is that given the choice between being on a screen or on social media or video games or whatever their thing may be, given a choice between that and engaging in a meaningful manner with their parents around play and imagination and creativity, they would rather have this one all day long, but they just don't know it because most parents aren't willing to put forth the effort. Like every time that our kids are on screens, or maybe we decide to put that away and play a game together as a family, do a puzzle as a family, even just go for a walk where we end up breaking out into this game of tag. Like those are the things that create lifelong memories. Those are the things that become nostalgic when they get older. And what we found is the more we introduce that into our kids' lives, the more they actually start to ask for it.
Yeah.
And they stop seeking
programming, right? We all have programming, and it's done from things like this, right? Behavioral moments in life at a young age, even at an older age, but specifically at a young age, that create the person you become, the filters you have, the expectations you have, and how you view things. And so something that was so common growing up was eating dinner as a family, even with Jacob. Common, right? We ate dinner as a family. We sat at the table. And now today, if we've allowed the kids to have some screen time, they've earned their minutes. We have to say specifically, no screens. We're sitting at the table and having dinner.
It's so funny. They'll literally,
they try.
Like dinner time and everybody coming to the table, and they both come up here with the screen and sit down, and they literally have a tablet or iPad in their hand.
Yes.
And we're like, hey, no screens. They're not welcome at the table because they're just so zoned in.
Zoned
that they don't
out. Yeah. So we do little things like that where we interrupt the pattern constantly. If we're human, we're busy. If there's ever an instance where we have an oopsies and we realize, oh my God, I was doing chores, you were outside. Have the kids been on freaking iPads for 2-3 hours? What is happening? We will fully interrupt that pattern and be like, whoops, mom and dad lost track of time. You guys have been on screens for far too long. We're going to go ahead and put screens away for the entire week now. And so do they love that? They don't love it. But what we have noticed, have we not? Like when we do that, by day 3 or 4, our kids are talking more. They're interacting more. They're sharing
they get along better.
Daily stories. They're playing together. The second the weather breaks, as it has already, where it's not like frostbite style. Well, we force them outside. No, you cannot get on screens. That's not even an option. Go outside and play with a friend, play with each other, play independently. So I would say our biggest focus is interrupting that pattern as often as possible, deleting it as often as possible, and owning up to when we've made mistakes of not overseeing it in a manner that we see as fit.
And on their end, everything's earned, not given, wherever possible. Like make them earn the time through a productive activity, through something that's going to teach responsibility and accountability. And never just simply give it.
Yeah. So they have to earn it through chores. They earn it through family work. They earn it through just practicing skills that we feel are really important, and we track that stuff. So we're huge fans of that. And then it's helped us help them understand that, hey, you can't just have whatever you want instantaneously. There's some work to be done. All right, you guys, that's a wrap. Thrive After Dark. We talked all things kids today and our opinions on some of people's hardships that they're going through. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, if you have any desired things that you want us to do, like requesting Reddit more, just put it in the comments below, DM it to us. Or, of course, there's the jot form in the description on YouTube that is totally anonymous. Hit that and type away.
And as always, thank you for joining us on episode 8, and we will see you on the next one.